Earlier in the summer, I started documenting an experiment I wanted to trial in regards to doing softwood plant propagation using a standard aquarium aeration pump or bubbler. I'm going to link here to the most recent video on that, which will bring you up to speed with what the experiment was. I've since retired the bubbler for the season. We're now in early October, and so I'm not trying to strike roots on any more softwood cuttings. But what I thought I would do in this video is review this bed of all the different cuttings throughout the season and review how well it worked. Spoiler alert, overall it worked quite well, and there's definitely some catches and things that didn't work, and I'll share notes about that, so stick around. So if you remember from the past videos, throughout the season, I tried a few different things, but the iteration that I am sticking with, which was 2 containers, each with a little air stone in them, and the 1-gallon plastic pots with a rock in the bottom, and bundles of cuttings of different varieties until they start pushing roots. That seemed to work quite nicely. Some real extreme winners and kind of no-brainers in a way were goji and willow. Those I don't know if they even really needed the bubbling to work, but it sure helped. So this bed has a number of different cultivar willows. The super vigorous friends there are goji. So now we have 4 different named varieties of gojis that are very thoroughly rooted, that can be stool layered. And just let me take a step back and explain my intention for this bed. It was designed in a way where all of these cuttings, rooted or not, can remain here through the fall and over winter. I have no intention of digging them up this fall. When/if they bud out in the spring, that's how I know they've truly, really rooted and can go out into the field or be sold or what have you. Some gaps in here that you're seeing, these were some lessons learned throughout the season. So for example, here's a block that is pretty barren. I would call it nearly fully failure. In fact, the clove currant, which I thought would have really rooted, that's in here, completely did not. And that particular block of sea berries, or sea buckthorn, it's a female cultivar called Titan, barely rooted. I think we had a hot spell where I was not out here watering every day, and they simply dried out and died. So if you're going to try this, you do need to make sure you're actually vigilant in watering your cuttings. Who'd have figured? This is after they started pushing some roots. I planted them out. We had hot days, I wasn't here, and they just dried out. Very easy thing to fix in the future. Taking that lesson to heart, here's another block of sea berries taken. Of course, it was a little cooler recently, but so far it seems like 100% they're holding their leaves, which is promising, but I don't believe tells a story that they've rooted, but they are on their way to doing so. When I know a plant is beginning to root, or when I can assume they have rooted, is when, for example, here are the leaves it started out with. So this is a sea berry. I stripped most of the leaves off. These are all new sets of leaves that have grown since they've been planted out here. Now, I'm not going to say that guarantees they're rooted, but that is very promising that they're actively growing. If I were to go and dig this up right now, I could very easily, incredibly easily, shred the roots that are forming. Another reason to do these in soil and leave them over winter so they can continue to develop roots and wake up in the spring, be ready to go. And here are hardy kiwis. I would say they look as though nearly 100% have rooted. I'm seeing bright, fresh green growth on a number of them. Well, here's one that didn't root. But overall, these seem quite promising. Beauty bush, or beauty berry, which I've never worked with before, a friend just gave me a few cuttings. That's off to the races, really growing. So overall, I would venture a guess 80% plus strike rate. We'll see in the spring. Of course, we'll do an update in the spring. The 20% or more failure I would attribute almost entirely to my lack of watering throughout the season when they needed it. And so now we've got these beds, I'm learning I could have taken more cuttings, because we had this whole section in here. So for the fall, I'm just putting together a little stool bed of, this is Pilgrim cultivar cranberries. The soil's super rich, might as well fill it out. This bed, I thought I would need more space. That's all just sand, the whiteness you're seeing. So that's been seeded out to beets and carrots for us. There's some more sea berry, cranberry, and sea berry. Figured do a little berry medley over there. But again, for 12 watts of consumption for the bubbler. Now if you got a really efficient one for a small container, you're looking at like 3 to 5 watts, $10 to $20 investment. All of these plants, multiple varieties of grapes, gojis, willows, seaberry, all of these are off and running. I could recoup the entire investment for this project with about 3 of these rooted plants. So the return on investment's incredible. It's just exciting to have something set up in the yard that we can just basically photocopy plants in the season. Oh, one other very distinct failure. Autumn olive and gumi, I got very little rooting on. So maybe I should change my numbers to more like 70%. This one looks promising. This is an autumn olive that I really like the fruit on. Don't worry, I'm not selling them. I know they're illegal and blah, blah, blah. But really great plant. Autumn olive and gumi, it still remains to be seen. If folks out there have great experience rooting those or propagating those plants, please share in the comments how you've done so. I'd love to crack that code. Anyway, that's our softwood propagation update for the fall, and we'll show in the spring if everybody's rooted and growing or what other lessons have been learned. But the takeaway for now is it's highly recommended, I think.